and welcome back to the main stage at Event Tech Live 2021 and to our next session of the day, Design the Event of Your Dreams with the Smart Venue Framework. I'm delighted to say that joining us now should be Mary Ann Pierce, founder and CEO at Map Digital. Mary, good day to you.
Good day to you, James, New York. Live from New York here.
Fantastic. Fantastic for you to be joining us today, Marianne. I know that you're going to be bringing on your guest, Michelle Bruno, very shortly, so I will hand over to you and see you a little bit later on with some questions from our audience.
Thanks very much.
Well, actually, we're going to do a little bit of a switch here because Marianne is my guest. My name is Michelle Bruno. I am a content strategist, writer in the events industry, and I specialize in event technology, which is how I came across Marianne. And I'm really excited to be here today because Marianne's been working on a concept that is really applicable for the entire industry, and I found it really, really exciting. So, Marianne, I'm going to turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, thank you, Michelle, and it's a pleasure to be here with you at Event Tech Live. My name is Mary Ann Pierce. I'm the founder and CEO of Map Digital. We are an event service agency that has the platform, the people, and the process to drive strategic business objectives for in-person, virtual, and hybrid event conferences. So you wanted to know more about why did we decided to go with the event smart venue framework. I think that, as we're going through the disruption that we've had for the last 14, 15 months, we are all now looking that we will be going back on site. And one thing that keeps ringing in my ears is that hybrid events will need smart venues. So over 25 years ago, I got started in the events industry providing the digital and the internet and managed services there. And my former company provided the internet access and network services to the top 20 event venues in New York City. We provided the internet drops, the internet protocol addresses, and then we started to build managed services, the network internet kiosks, badging stations. Then we started to produce on-site presentation networks to push the content around to the different presentation rooms, and then finally to webcast. I produced my first webcast in 1996 at the New York Sheraton. So it's in my DNA to partner with the venues for all things digital for events.
So, great. Tell me a little bit about what's happening. Maybe back it up to the previous slide. Tell me a little bit more about what's happening in the industry that would, precipitate the need for something like smart venue, which we're going to talk more about.
Well, I think what's happening in our industry is much uncertainty for the return of the face-to-face events. We currently have 20 events slated for the fall, and our clients have not yet decided if they're going to be virtual or hybrid. So there's a lot of complexity and a lot of uncertainty that we're witnessing. We're making a lot of contingency plans. Also, there's no one blueprint for hybrid event design. And what is a hybrid? I think that name is a placeholder for what events have become or will become. We like to think of events now of being multi-channel. There's going to be multiple sources of content coming in from speakers remote, attendees remote, pre-recorded video. It's going to be a new experience. So complexity is abounding. And when complexity abounds, prices go up. We're hearing about price gouging by venues and suppliers. Obviously, every stakeholder has lost a lot during COVID. The organizer, the venue, the supplier, the sponsors, and even the attendees. So what to do when there's a lot of complexity and a lot of uncertainty? COVID has pushed events into the clouds. Events are now platforms. The time has come for the industry to think differently, to simplify, and to partner with all stakeholders, and to build a better model. That's why we're focusing now on maximizing the venue as a smart venue as we return on site to the hybrid event experience.
Good to know. So now we're going to start the exciting part because smart venue, uh, we're going to be talking about indirectly how to create the event of your dreams with sort of a new framework. You're calling it smart venue. I'd love to know just at a high level, what is smart venue? And we'll get into how it can help later on.
Great. Well, Smart Venue is the name that we're calling it right now. As we go further in this presentation, we might come up with a new name for it that might be interesting. Maybe we'll have a vote among Event Tech Live attendees. But anyway, Smart Venue is a framework that simplifies hybrid event management by using one command center with a software as a service platform to manage all the digital workflows, regardless of the technology provider. So instead of a venue just providing the meeting space and internet access, that they work on the same event platform as the organizer to manage the digital workflows. They also, with the Smart Venue platform, will manage the on-site devices, the content assets, and also the gathering of the data. They can offer the digital space around their venue, not just the physical space. So for instance, for digital workflow, slides are uploaded by the speaker onto the Smart Venue platform, pushed to the correct session room, then pushed to the conference website and integrated into the live webcast. All attendees on site and on the web have the same content-rich and interactive conference experience. These attendees log in once as they journey through the event platform, which integrates multiple tech providers. All their data is also stored in one place. So on-site with the Smart Venue platform, all devices are controlled by the platform. The RFID access points, the smart badges, the printers, the presentation laptops, the dynamic agenda signage, webcasting endpoints to the streaming providers are set up for every session room. There is central command dashboard to monitor traffic on the hotel's infrastructure and to troubleshoot problems. Contribution by other tech providers such as surveys, attendee matching, networking, AI, machine learning for video searches are embedded within the Smart Venue platform. All workflow is automated via APIs, that's application programming interface. And most importantly, all data is stored on one dashboard to be pushed out to the organizers' CRMs, internal databases, or advanced data analytic platforms such as Marketo, VivaStream, Bear Analytics. You know, this is a lot of work to do, and not one venue or enterprise can be responsible to build it. But like Rome, it will not be built in a day. However, many industries have been disrupted by COVID, healthcare, education, to name a few. Time has come to at least dream to think differently, to simplify, and to partner with all stakeholders to build back better.
So let me just clarify. So what you're talking about is a cloud platform that will handle all the digital assets, all of the digital devices. Anything digital in an event is going to be handled and centralized in the cloud, and that cloud will be accessible from the venue's IT infrastructure, right? That's Smart Venue.
Absolutely. And also the planner will be working on it before the event. And also that if it is a shared platform, the AV and the staging company will be working on it. So it's a shared asset. We're basing it over the venue because that's where the hybrid action is happening. And that's where a lot of the connection of like taking those assets and pushing them to the correct room and webcasting from the correct room, that's where a lot of complexity happens. But it's a shared asset.
So you've been you didn't even know it when you started out, but you've been working on Smart Venue for a number of years. And I'm really curious to know how it evolved and how you did it. How did you stumble across this sort of configuration?
Well, as I mentioned at the top of the session, I have a long history of providing on-site internet access and network services, as well as content management and webcasting for events. Essentially, Map Digital was born hybrid. We're based in New York City, and we work with many of the financial service corporations. They're tech savvy, and they have the budget because their investment banking conferences move the market in real time. So Map Digital has evolved in this crucible. In 2000, we were disrupted. Webcasting became the norm because of the SEC's fair disclosure regulation. Overnight, nearly every publicly traded company's session had to be streamlined. Stream live. So it was time for us to build a platform to manage all this content, all this direction to data and to devices on site, all this workflow and production. Thus, our MetaMeetings platform was born. Essentially, MetaMeetings is a digital workflow and production platform. We're API'd into our client's database to push and pull data. So our organizers build their events on their database and we pull it into our platform. We also push out their data in real time to their research and to their internal stakeholders. Speakers upload their slides, their profiles, their special requests, and attendees access their content and interactive elements all on the same platform. On site, our platform manages the QR badging, the agenda signages, pushes the slides to the session rooms, and webcasts live. And also we have been asked to offer RFID as we return back on site. So essentially, we've built in a microcosm a smart venues because it's all about the show. Obviously, when we had to go virtual, we adapted very quickly to a virtual-only platform. So we often thought, wouldn't it be interesting to leave our MetaMeetings platform and the network that we built behind in the events for other organizers to plug into? Why build, deploy, and destroy when we can share?
So one of the interesting things that I really enjoyed learning about was the idea that, now we have lots of different partners working on an event, and they all work in different silos. And yes, through APIs, we can connect them. So data and functionality can flow across multiple platforms. But what you're suggesting is to now literally put them all into a cloud together, make them interoperable. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how that happens, how the interoperability will come about, and how that'll be structured, this ecosystem of multiple partners.
Well, first of all, the desire to do it needs to be there. So we've been talking about this and have been looking at other platforms that do tremendous things that we know that we would never build. The future of events is not just based on Map Digital. We know what we do well, content management and webcasting, and we prefer to partner with other platforms who have built extraordinary assets. So our job is to listen to our clients and to bring to them platforms that will advance their business objectives. So we started early talking with other platforms who we admired. We started envisioning as this sort of ecosystem, whether it's with API or with middleware. A lot of IT has to get involved, a lot of programming has to get involved, and we have to be careful of security and compliance. But these are all things that we can manage and we can work on. The smart venue platform should be an engine that's enriched by the other platforms within an ecosystem. With this diagram that you see, we have worked with or speaking to all of these tech platforms. We have an API with Ardian, who did the credentialing and the RFID tracking for the Biden administration's inauguration. We have worked with VivaStream and adore their advanced data analytics platform and their data visualization. We are building an API to bear analytics for our association clients. And if a critical survey is requested by a client, we recommend Explori. They're your survey data scientist. We just worked with Clipper and used their AI and machine learning video optimization platform for design thinking workshop on the future of medical meetings. We really opened insights. It really was well received. We are always looking to partner with Snowball for content marketing platforms to help build audiences. And we're beta testing with some newcomers, HEO, a social networking platform, and hopefully Xenos, an ethical face recognition device and platform for when we return on site. Of course, all data gets captured, our attendees have one login, and content is stored, and everything gets pushed into our client's Salesforce or their other databases. It's a dream, and we're starting to build it.
So this is really also where the event of your dreams comes in, because an organizer could come in, and if a venue is set up appropriately and is using a smart venue framework, they can bring in their own partners and who can all work together in the cloud, right?
Essentially, as long as those partners have had a pre-agreement that they are sharing user information that's going across the platforms with with an API or with other forms of connection. But what a hotel or a venue really needs to really be smart venue are the basics. Basically, they need high-speed bandwidth, both wired and wireless. And in the hybrid events that are coming, they're going to need lots of it with redundancy on different internet service providers. They have to build their local area networks. That's the infrastructure, how they connect the rooms with these internet closets. They have to be robust, and they have to be agile. I mean, you can work with them and play with them around. They also need to think about our attendees are returning on site, and they got used to the networking and making meetings and interactivity of the virtual platforms, and they're not going to leave them behind. They're going to want to be able to continue to use those platforms. So therefore, they're going to need lots of wireless bandwidth, access points, and also multiple internet protocol for all the devices. And we know that the attendees will be packing more than one device in which to experience on site. Organizers will be asking for assistance because there'll be a huge uptick in video webcasting and switching stations that are needed to pipe in remote speakers and content. This is beyond a lot of organizers' experience, and it's going to be a significant plan, a significant resource, and it's also going to take up a lot of bandwidth. Also, I believe that moving forward with some of the health regulations, we're going to be insisting on more touchless environment. Touchless badgings via QR and other ways. Our presentation networks are going to be pushed from a smart venue platform that the assets were gathered beforehand, and they get pushed to that podium laptop. I don't envision speakers plugging their own laptops into House AV anymore. And also partnership with other software as a service providers, and better yet, working with production companies, staging companies, agencies that know the platforms, have this process down, and have the trained technical people in which to help their clients be more successful in their venues.
So organizers have to buy into this. So what's going to be required for an organizer to participate in a smart venue framework?
Well, I think that at this time now is the time for people to partner. Now is the time to gather people in your lifeboat or into your think tank. And it's going to require a long-term investment on all parties. I think for an organizer, I would recommend that you partner with your venues for the next couple of years, maybe 5 years. They're going to have to build out a more robust infrastructure. They obviously have costs to consider. They're making up for a year and a half of lost revenue, and they don't quite understand or have the roadmap. So we need to work on this together to curate and to customize. Hybrid events will require long-term investment. It will just for the internet and the infrastructure, but also in a smart event platform. One of our clients has signed a 10-year contract with their venues. They have funded a major fiber infrastructure to carry the show network from the show floor to the sleep rooms because they have meetings. And they also request a grade interconnecting the meeting spaces so we could push larger files for presentations and webcasting. Of course, connectivity is always negotiated in these long-term contracts. You see this mutual beneficial society is that a hotel is guaranteed 10 years of food and beverage and heads and beds and revenue. And to keep the client, we work together. So that's something that's really important. Next week, I'm flying out to San Francisco to meet with the IT manager of the hotel where we produce our largest conference, which has 600 live webcasts. We want to get on the same page now for what we think will happen in January. We know that there'll be many revisions, but the hotel is mission critical to our success and to our clients' success. So this partnering is becoming very critical.
So Smart Venue has some wide-reaching, some very broad implications for the industry as a whole. But we know that there's going to be a challenge for the industry. So explain a little bit around, on an industry-wide basis, what's the challenge for us now?
Well, the challenge to build a smart venue infrastructure or a platform within the meetings industry, and especially within existing venues, is going to be great complexity and great thinking. And also, it's going to cost, but we should consider it as an investment. Once again, great complexity. This situation's out of control, therefore, I'll assume as much control as possible. It's time to pull together and start thinking about building an interoperable platform. So much is lost by not working together. And there's a way that everyone can win as far as market share and revenue. I think if we think that way, we can start to come together to start building this. You might want to call it smart venues, you might want to call it smart meetings, you might want to call it Fred, but getting on a platform, the industry to have a platform that mines and that manages workflow, is simple, and also keeps our data and becomes more intelligent, is something that we should all aspire to. All the stakeholders take a part to shape it and to share. Look at ServiceNow. It's a corporation that's helping enterprise to integrate their tech stacks. We believe that integration is innovation. And, other partners have a big stake in the events industry. You can look at the bandwidth providers. Look at Verizon with their 5G rollout. Once 5G rolls into a venue, all the existing infrastructure, network, Cisco equipment is going out. So it's a perfect time to begin better, to have really robust internet, cloud edge cloud computing, as well as having a very robust integrated smart venue platform installed. Also look at your content delivery networks who are going to be really working and making a lot of money with streaming. Amazon Web Services, Azure, Microsoft's Azure, Akamai. And then look at the managed service convention center companies. They can also partner. You could say to your organizers, all of our venues are robust with connectivity and have smart venues. So you can choose from any one of our portfolios and we'll give you the same experience. That's a value added differentiation to have customer loyalty. But also another stakeholder should be considered is the local governments. They have a deep interest in fostering the return to business conferences in their cities.
So for these groups that buy in, there's obviously benefits. So let's start with the venues themselves. What are the benefits for a venue that wants to be a smart venue according to your definition?
Well, I think you're going to differentiate, maybe a larger technology or a more robust conference that has a voracious appetite for live webcasting and content management and attendee management and having this multi-channel hybrid experience. So what's in it is probably, first of all, attracting these high-tech business-to-business conferences, really basically start guaranteeing more revenue also for the venue, but also for the destination. I mean, it's not only guaranteed business for the CVB's partners, the other hotels, the other vendors, but also for the tax base, for the destination and municipality. And as we know, business tourists spend 5 times as much as regular tourists. So that's an incredible amount of revenue incentive for the destinations, who many times are the ones who own or control the convention centers. And also business conferences, especially sector specific in healthcare or technology or aviation, they usually pick certain cities because that's where their industry is based. And it's well beyond the spend, and it's well beyond the hotel and the golf fees. It really becomes a site for investment in those destinations, merger and acquisitions, investment in new companies. I mean, attendees just don't go to the conference. They go look at other like companies to see if they can merge or see if they can provide jobs. So, and also, basically, if there's a unified smart venue app that is going to be the conference website, it can also become the passport to the destination. So as soon as that doctor or that engineer gets off the plane, they basically are offered personalized discounts and monetization. Here's your 50%, drinks off at the Hilton. So it's a way of basically, once again, integrating and simplifying and being on a platform to hit multiple monetization targets.
So there's going to be a bit of a sticker shock for organizers at first, thinking about doing things differently. But there are some significant benefits for the organizers that rent these venues for their events. What are those?
Well, there is going to be a sticker shock, and that's the bull in the china closet here. And we're trying our very best to mitigate that or to try to make that happen. But it is just another way of doing business, of doing events. What's the uptick? Well, when you consolidate, you invest to reduce production costs, to gain more effective workflow. How much time is spent with Excel spreadsheets and multiple people working with speakers and presentations? Everything should be on a platform. Also, making things easy to deploy, that they're simplified, that it's not all the stress and multiple vendors have to get involved, when basically if you have an integrated tech stack, you'll have fewer people working, and also in more cogent ways. So over the long term, your ROI will increase. But also, events have changed. How we measure events have changed. The virtual has taught us a lot about data and has given us a plethora of data that we're still trying to realize and to analyze. So we believe that by creating an integration of a tech stack, that your data, more importantly, stays in one place, and that has been a real problem in the past, where data was all siloed in other platforms. And I think that data will lead to new revenue. And you really should avoid inventing the wheel for every meeting. I mean, that's fatiguing, and it's really a bad use of your enterprise, of your time, to always be seeking the new, time to consolidate. So I think that's for the organizer. It's really go into hybrid and not lose your mind, basically.
Well, that's one way to put it. So,
Well,
the final question, and really the biggest question of all, is what's next? How do we make this come to fruition for the entire industry, this concept?
well, we just know from the space that we're in is that, we started out as a network service company, and then all of a sudden a client asked us, can you do a webcast? And we just never said no. We didn't intend to build meta meetings. We didn't intend to build what was smart venue platform. It was the genesis of it. But we learned along the way that we saved our clients a lot of money by streamlining their workflow and their P&L. So I think it's a question. It's not just it's the enterprise. It's not just the organizer. It's they need to go back into their stakeholders, their sponsors, even their attendees. Like, what kind of experience do you want? And then how can we work backwards with all the stakeholders to make it happen? It's not one size fits all, or like my platform does everything, which we know does not exist, and nor should it, a perfect world. But I think that by partnering and having an open conversation, I mean, we learned so much with this design thinking workshop that we did for the medical meetings. We had the big pharma, we had the medical associations, we had the agencies like ourselves and Freeman sitting there, all coming together to say, what is the model for the future that the medical professional is going to want to attend? So that kind of creative thinking and that kind of reducing complexity, working together, is probably the best advice that I can give for an industry to move forward and to flourish. But there will be investment. And then, as we say, after all, we're all in this together. So let's work together.
Great. Well, that's concludes our presentation, but I'm sure there's got to be questions. And if with any luck, Marianne, we haven't lost the entire audience, maybe there'll be some questions coming in. I know I have a big one, and I'm just betting that it's going to be the very first question that comes in.
All right, we have money on it, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess while we're waiting for a moderator to tell us if there are any questions, I think the biggest question really is who's going to pay for this?
Exactly. It's going to have to be amortized over a lot of people.
Hopefully I should be joining Marianne and Michelle any moment now with some questions. Ladies, there you are. Great to see you. Hopefully you can both hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the session. Let's go straight to the questions because we've got several that have been posted, several comments as well, just saying great discussion. Thank you very much for the insight. Let's come first to a question here looking at contingency plans. What do you put in place contingency plan wise should critical components like the internet bandwidth fail during the event?
Oh, these are basic. I mean, it can't fail because we're hybrid.
Sure.
Internet is your lifeblood for now going on site. It's not a nice to have, it must have. You know that your attendees are not all going to arrive and your speakers are not going to arrive. You need to work with your hotel to have redundancy, multiple internet service providers, not just one tier, multiple tiers. And you need to make sure that the internet is robust enough. If you don't have internet and you're doing hybrid, you really have less of a show, half of a show.
Absolutely. Something else, just to add to that, if I could, before I go to the question, of course, we've got such reliable now in most parts of the world, cellular connections, haven't we? So as well as the bandwidth and the internet service providers that are providing direct connections into a building, you know, AV providers can provide great backup and redundancy as well through cellular connections.
Yeah, they can, and you know, by any way, shape, or form. But if you're in New York City, you do not rely on cellular because at noon everyone gets on their cell phones and everything drops. So I think it's basically to the contingency is to really do your disaster recovery. What happens, and talk to any IT director or any live event producer. We think disaster recovery. We walk backwards to see what could go wrong and how do we recover.
Absolutely.
And I think
Michelle, Michelle, please.
Yeah. There's large files now that have to be pushed around inside the venue, and wireless until we have like a 5G. I mean, Verizon and AT&T probably would beg to differ and say that wireless is a good backup, or perhaps can exist alone. But with the file sizes and what we're proposing, that's not going to work yet.
It's not just the file size; it's also the access points. It's also the equipment, you know, that is going to be serving it up. So I would love not to have to wire one more meeting room. I would love that. That day will come, I'll do a happy dance, and hopefully soon, the next 4 or 5 years.
Sure. I think sometimes as well we forget that just the basic equipment that we carry around in our bags day to day for work, laptops, mobile devices, they're all capable of outputting really high quality video now as well. And we forget just the sheer capacity that they need both in storage, but with bandwidth if we're using those for streaming. I think that's a big consideration that people often miss, is that what they're carrying around is better than what AV companies were using 15 years ago at the highest end.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, our cell phone could take a man to the moon. I mean, that's how it is at this point. Also, we become a video generation. Are we going to go back to audio only webcasting? We've changed as a society, and I think that when I'm looking at a 14-track conference that I have to build and do the bandwidth, I'm going to have exponential cost for bandwidth, and I need to start talking to my venue now that they can provide it reliably and at a price point that we can afford.
Well, maybe that's a good opportunity to put another question in that's been posted in the chat, which is there a recommended bandwidth that you would put to an organizer per attendee?
How much you give the attendee, they'll use. I mean, we know that. We know, since we handle the internet access from we work with the hotels. We even bring in internet if we want to. But we're also monitoring how many devices are being used. And we know we have 10,000 people on site because we badge 10,000 people. Then how come we have 30,000 internet protocol devices or protocol addresses being used? Because people are on multiple devices. They're on their phones, they're on their laptops. Sometimes they're actually in their room watching the live webcast of the conference, they're FaceTiming with someone else. So I don't know. I mean, it depends on, it's really hard to judge. I think that depends. I don't know, I have to go back to my people, but they would love 2 megabits each, but then do the math, that gets a little pricey. But yeah.
Well, I guess you're right in what you're saying, is that if you give somebody a capacity, they will just use it up. If they see that they've got a really fast connection with great bandwidth, they'll go straight on YouTube, or they'll watch something, or they'll suddenly download a load of files that they've been waiting on receiving. It's a case of very much, if it's there, people will probably use it. So you can never have too much. Let's go to a question for Michelle, if I could. Somebody's commented in the chat that that's fine for this all sounds very expensive, which may be fine for the financial services industry, but what about not-for-profit organizations? How would we look and address the issue of the price point?
Well, it's really more of a Marianne question, but I'll weigh in. So I think that there will be some industries that will actually create the infrastructure, both on the software and the IT hardware side. And they will enable the people that have less resources, like some nonprofit associations, to perhaps at some level piggyback off of those. So if you have Microsoft going into a building and they cannot, or Amazon is a great example, going into a venue, I mean, they'll go in and it cannot fail. So they'll build out an IT infrastructure and it'll stay there. And they'll keep going back to that building all the time. And the infrastructure will be there. And now we're saying that a cloud platform for everything will be there. And the nonprofits will be able to leverage that going forward. We have to first build it, and then we'll have the capacity and the capabilities to let others in and use it. That's kind of the general principle, right, Marianne?
I believe so. I mean, the financial services and also the healthcare and pharma, I mean, they need to be at market. This is mission critical for them. They're going to build it, and what they're going to do is leave it behind. As I talked about those 3 fiber trunks that we went through the whole 12 floors of this one hotel, we leave that behind, and other people use it. The hotel uses it. So I think let the people who have the deep need to get to market really quickly, because the market or their FDA approval or the marketing termination depends on it. Let them build it and watch it, and I'm sure they're going to be opening it up, so it becomes a commodity.
And it dovetails nicely, and it brings us on to the next question that's been asked during the session, which is, as an organizer, what points should we look for to identify a smart venue? Is there a checklist that somebody who's maybe not gone through this process before and hasn't had to look at a venue with this particular set of criteria, what would they use as a checklist?
Well, it depends on what they want to do, like what is their event. And that's the whole thing with hybrid events, is that there's so many ways to go. I mean, you're going to webcast every session? I'm not sure about that. You're going to be looking at maybe your meeting design is completely different. But I think it's good to have a conversation with your hotel. Start off with your salesperson and get with the IT director and have them at the same meeting together. You might have to bring your own technology advisor with you. There's some translation that has to happen sometimes, and I think it's ask them exactly, what do you have, and what can I plug into, or what can I work with. I know that we have shown our concept of smart venues to some conference centers in the United States as well as around the world as a beta. They're always saying, oh, we love this. Our clients are always asking us if we can manage their presentation networks. Do we have a platform in which to gather and to push? Right now, we're using SharePoint and an Excel spreadsheet. So they would like to get smarter. They would like to be, venues would like to be saying, they need to webcast, it gets complicated. Is there a way that we can just make our place endpoints embedded onto a platform, and we just offer it to our clients. So there's a desire there. So talk to them and see what they have, and then start talking to your technology providers and see if we can all come together and work together.
On the subject of hotels, I'm based in the UK, and I know for certain that some hotels, if you went and actually asked them, what's your capacity, what's your bandwidth, they just wouldn't have the first idea about actually what the connection is that's coming into the building. They just have somebody that puts the internet in. Do you happen to know if there is a discussion amongst the hotel industry, like there is within the event industry at the moment, about this subject and on this subject? Are they discussing themselves as to what they need to do to make sure that they can maintain the business that is going to potentially be there for them as we move forward with this new way of delivering events?
Marianne's staying quiet. Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I would expect that most venues are talking. Venue management groups like SMG and the like, I'm sure are involved, and the smart cities who would provide the IT infrastructure in venues are well aware of what will be needed in the future. I think that it's going to change, though. Marianne talked a little bit about it. As soon as 5G is widely available, all venues will have to change anyway. They'll have to bring in devices and connections and things like that. But if they aren't talking about it, then they're even further behind than we thought, and we're further away from having something like this available.
Absolutely. I think we've unfortunately lost Marianne from the stream at the moment, which is perhaps an apt time to say thank you to you both. I know she's not on screen at the moment, but Marianne Pierce, founder and CEO at Map Digital, and of course Michelle Bruno on screen at the moment, president at Bruno Group Signature Services, talking there about design the event of your dreams with the smart venue framework. A fantastic discussion, and thank you very much to you both for joining Event Tech Live. Marianne and Michelle Bruno, everybody. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.